So I'm sure many of you will have heard about the bizarre case of Virginia McCullough, a woman who has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of both her parents John and Lois in the house they shared. But not only did this individual murder her parents, she also stole just shy of £150,000 and hid their bodies at the property for over 4 years before their eventual discovery. Now in this video, I'll be providing you with the backstory to this particular case by going through what was told in court as the judge, Mr. Justice Johnson, sentenced Virginia McCullough to life imprisonment. Take a listen to the following. In June 2019, you murdered your father, John McCullough, and your mother, Lois McCullough. You have pleaded guilty to each of those offences. The facts. You are 36 years old. You are the youngest of 5 daughters. In June 2019, you were still living with your parents. All of your sisters had long since moved out of the family home. Your mother was 71. She suffered from anxiety and agoraphobia and had traits of obsessive-compulsive disorder. Your father was 70. He suffered with ill health. You did not work and did not have any regular income. You received payments from your father and they relied on you to deal with some of their financial arrangements. You stole from your parents and secured loans in their names without their knowledge to increase the amounts you could take from them. You spent money gambling online and shopping. You lied about how the losses that they sustained were incurred. You said that they had been subject to fraud by others, or that there had been banking failures, or that they had been hacked. You invented police and corporate investigations with promises of repayment, but which were always subject to delays. You lied to your parents about having employment when you did not. You lied that you had certain medical conditions which you did not have. Okay, so let's just cut in here very briefly. Now, when I read that initially, the fact that she had been online gambling, my initial thoughts were, well, maybe this is the catalyst. Maybe this is the motive for the murder of her parents in order to access more funds. Maybe she's got into some sort of level of personal debt and she's seeking a way to, feed her habit, basically. But having done a little bit more research on this, it appears that out of the grand total of £149,000, she only spent £21,000 of that on online gambling. So it's not like we're looking at someone with a deep level addiction here that she spent 70, 80, 90, or even the full amounts, the full £149,000 on online gambling alone. That's not the case. That's not what we're looking at here. From March 2019, you started to contemplate killing both of your parents. You say that was because you felt trapped and you wanted to be free from them. The reality is that you were trapped only by your own dishonest behaviour. You must have appreciated that it was only a matter of time before your thefts and dishonesty would be discovered. By the 17th of June 2019, you were almost £60,000 in debt. That evening, you placed a cocktail of prescription drugs in their drinks. The following morning, you found your father dead in his bed. Your mother was also in bed. You had not put so many drugs in her drink, and she had not drunk all of her drink. She was still alive. You had a backup plan for that scenario. You put that plan into effect. You hit her over the head with a hammer. Her last conscious moment was the realization that you, her daughter, had launched a murderous attack on her. She asked you what you were doing. She suffered defensive injuries as she fought for her life. You stabbed her with a knife 8 times, including 7 stabs to her chest, resulting in her death. That morning, you went to the GP for help with a cut to your hand. You had sustained that cut while stabbing your mother, but you said it was the result of an accident when cutting vegetables. Then you went to Chelmsford Town Centre to buy items to use to conceal your parents' bodies. The following day, the 19th of June, you pretended to be your mother to obtain a new credit card and PIN number. You then used that card to buy clothes and jewellery for yourself. You set about concealing the bodies. You placed each of your parents in a sleeping bag that you purchased on the 18th of June. You then placed your mother in a wardrobe that you had sealed up with tape. Later, you partially obstructed the wardrobe with breeze blocks. You placed your father in a makeshift mausoleum constructed from breeze blocks. For 4 years and 3 months after you had murdered your parents, you pretended that they were still alive. That started right from the day of their deaths. That afternoon, you sent a text from your mother's phone to one of your sisters. The message was, quote, "Your dad and I are at the seaside in Walton this week. Mum, kiss." Then that night, another message, quote, "Good night, Mum, kiss." You continued to send such messages over the following months and years. You even spoke to one sister pretending to be your and her mother. You used a large number of different SIM cards to contact your siblings and others pretending to be your parents. You sent pre-printed birthday cards using an online service. You took your parents' pension payments amounting to almost £136,000. You telephoned your father's pension company pretending to be him. You also spent money on their credit cards and opened new credit cards in their names and spent money on those. You used their bank accounts and took their winter fuel payments. The total amount you took was almost £150,000. You made calls to the police pretending to be your mother, complaining about trivial matters. You made calls to your parents' GP pretending to be your mother. You are described by one of your sisters as having always been a compulsive liar. That description is clearly justified, but it hardly captures the elaborate, extensive, and enduring web of deceit that you spun and maintained over months and years. Okay, so let's just jump in here again very briefly. Now, the fact that she's called her father's pension company and pretended to be a male on the phone, I mean, this case is truly and utterly bizarre. Now, something else I read in a newspaper article, which I feel is worth discussing, is the fact that shortly before she was arrested, she was going around the town or around the village or whatever, pretending to be pregnant. Her neighbours said, yeah, she was walking around in a maternity wear, in a maternity gown, showing people scans of her pregnancy, and it all just turned out to be completely fictitious. And also something that caught my eye was that shortly before her arrest, and bearing in mind, her parents are actually dead in the house at this point, this Virginia McCullough had actually created a fictitious break-in where she had said that 3 individuals had broken into her back garden where she was assaulted, she had cuts on her face, and she actually called the police, and the police attended the property. Now, from the timeline, I can only assume that this is after the parents had been killed. So can you imagine that? Committing this crime, not just committing this crime, but then really inviting attention really onto yourself by then calling the police saying, yeah, there's been a break-in at my house, 3 guys got into the back garden, I've been hurt, I've been assaulted. Oh, no worries, we'll come round and we'll take a statement. Yeah, sure, no problem. Inviting pretty much the police to come to your property where you're giving a statement where these bodies are actually stowed away. You've got one in a wardrobe, one downstairs under the bed. It's just an utterly, utterly bizarre case. A truly incredible case. Anyway, let's continue. On the 15th of September 2023, officers attended at your home and arrested you on suspicion of murder. It was inevitable that they would discover the bodies of your parents and your responsibility for their deaths. What happened next is caught on their body-worn video. You admitted, in a matter-of-fact manner, that you murdered your parents and told the officers where they could find the bodies. So now we move on to the arrest of Virginia McCullough, and I'll play this video for you at the end. But my opinion of that arrest, I mean, she just seems very calm, doesn't she? Very controlled, very calm. She seems to be a little bit relieved that the police have finally turned up and, she can be whisked away. And, and I guess that's something that's gone through my mind when looking into this case. How the hell did she navigate those 4 years with the bodies of her parents in the house? I mean, what happened when someone would turn up with a delivery? If there was an unexpected visitor at the door, did she open the door? Did she let people in? Did people go round there during that 4-year period? It's not as if she's just completely shut herself away. If anything, she's actually drawn more attention to herself by her somewhat bizarre behaviour, leaving unwanted gifts for her neighbours, talking to the neighbours about a fictitious pregnancy, calling the police round regarding fictitious assaults, calling the police on behalf of her dead mother. It's almost as if you get the feeling with this individual that there's very much an attention-seeking bias going on here. I'm sure that these offences involved a substantial degree of both premeditation and planning. You had considered killing your parents over a period of 3 months. In that period, you accumulated a large amount of prescription drugs. In May 2019, you bought a knife as well as implements to crush and separate tablets. You put small doses of the drugs in your parents' lunch to test their effect. You drugged your father's drink 2 days before the murders in order to use him as a guinea pig. You had a primary plan, which was to use drugs to cause their deaths. And you had a backup plan, which was to use the murder weapons if your primary plan failed. It follows that the starting point is that a whole life order should be imposed. That is subject to consideration of the aggravating and mitigating features of the case and an overall assessment of the sentence to be imposed. Aside from the fact that there were 2 murders which both involve substantial planning and premeditation, there are a number of aggravating features. I am sure that a substantial motive for each of the murders was your intention to avoid your parents discovering that you had been stealing from them and lying to them, and to enable you to continue to take monies that were intended for them. The murders were done, therefore, in the expectation that you would gain financially as a result of your parents' deaths. We now move on to the mitigating factors. As to mitigating factors, you accuse your parents of conduct which might be said to involve some emotional and other neglect when you were young. Your sisters do not support everything you say. But in any event, you were in your 30s when you killed them. Any difficulties in childhood do not begin to explain or excuse what you did. The next section is mental health. I have the benefit of extensive medical evidence, including reports from experts instructed by both prosecution and defence. At the time of the offences, you had developed symptoms of personality disorder and autistic spectrum condition. You may also have had mild depression. Since the offending, you have developed some psychosis. These factors amount to personal mitigation, and they are relevant to the impact that custody will have on you. You also have some physical difficulties which I likewise take into account. The autistic spectrum condition may also explain the matter-of-fact way in which you admitted to the murders when you were arrested. It is suggested in one of the reports that you might have thought that you had a binary choice between living with your parents and killing them, and that this is likely to have been a consequence of autism. However, the evidence compellingly shows a financial motivation for killing your parents, rather than feelings of being trapped in the way that you describe. None of the experts suggest that your autism is responsible for your general dishonesty, or for stealing from your parents, or from reaching the position where your dishonesty was likely to be uncovered. And even if your autistic condition had a narrowing effect on the choices that you thought were available to you, you nevertheless made a free, deliberate and conscious decision to murder your parents. None of the experts suggest that decision was motivated or caused by your autistic condition. In the light of my assessment of the evidence, and in particular the reason for the offending, there is no scope for finding that your mental health substantially reduces your culpability. On the contrary, there is no impairment of your ability to understand the nature of your conduct, to form a rational judgment and to exercise self-control. These were considered acts of aggression following months of thought and planning. Okay, so it's also worth mentioning there that it appears that the GPs of both the parents of John and Lois, they were the first to really sort of realise that something wasn't quite right here. I mean, my question would be, how has the other 4 siblings not noticed that their parents have gone missing for the past 4 years? I mean, have they not contacted them? Have they not visited them? Just all seems like a very, very odd dynamic, to be perfectly honest. But anyway, separate to that, it's clear here that the GP was the first person to sort of raise the red flag, as it were. And then the police must have called Virginia, and they must have realised during that phone conversation, something's not right here, something's not quite right, which then led to Virginia McCullough's house being raided. Now, interestingly, in a different article, I also read that a neighbour was approached before the police got there, so before the police actually raided the property and discovered the bodies. Virginia had approached a neighbour and said something to the effect of, "The police believe I've killed my parents, the police are going to come round, they think I've murdered my parents." You know, just a very, very bizarre conversation, to be perfectly honest. But it's strange, isn't it? Clearly Virginia was aware that the police were going to turn up, everything was going to be uncovered, and then they sort of tarnished this. They sort of tarnished this behaviour with, well, she must be autistic, she must be on the autistic spectrum. Maybe that's why she was so sort of level-headed and calm when the police approached. I mean, my opinion is that if you've been expecting the police for the past 4 years, you're not exactly going to be a bag of nerves when they turn up, are you? You are going to be, I guess, a little bit relieved that this is finally over. I've lived with this for 4 years. The police are here. Well, they were going to turn up one day. Let's get on with it. That's kind of how most people would behave. They wouldn't be a wreck, a nervous wreck, thinking the police are going to turn. Oh, they're here. You're going to have expected that for the past 4 years. Yet they put this down, her sort of level-headed, calm nature. they immediately put this down to some sort of autistic condition, which personally I don't agree with. But anyway, there we are.
It's fine. No one in here at the moment. Hold on. The police. Got it.
Stay where you are.
Stay where you are.
Show me.
Stay where you are. Show your hands. You there?
Jenny.
Yep.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Oh. The time is 12:12. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder against Jonathan McCullough and Lois McCullough.
Yeah,
Okay?
okay.
You don't say anything, but it may harm defence. If you do
Can
not
I just
mention
take my cover?
when question, so much like want anything to do so with the evidence. Okay? Alright, your arrest is
I'll
necessary
cooperate, I'll
for a
cooperate.
prompt and effective.
Is there anything in the pocket we should know about?
Yes, there
Where?
is. Can I take you to it?
No, you can tell me.
Can we go in there for a second, just so I can tell you something about what's in there?
Yeah.
And then,
Let's tell us
the only
something
reason
about
I
what's in
said I need to tell you something about what's upstairs on the top floor as well.
It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
My dad's body's in there.
Right, okay.
Yep, okay. Obviously I'll
What about
say,
your mum?
a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
That's why I said, can I go upstairs and show
Right,
you?
can you
If
explain
wanna
it to us,
bring
please? Because
officers,
we're trying to preserve this. It's now going to be seen, so we need to preserve this the best we can. So I don't want you to have you walking up there, all right? Because that's for your well-being as well as ours.
Oh, no, up.
Okay.
Up.
So what?
Thank you.
Where will we find your mum?
Well, possible.
Where will we find your mum?
Okay, so upstairs there are about 5 wardrobes.
Yep.
It's behind the bed at the back next to the sink. That's the second one. I slipped 5 of those into his drink. There were about 2 or 3 drinks that I brought downstairs. And yeah, they were basically, he didn't drink all of them. He only drank probably about half of 2. But yeah, when I went in the morning, this was before my mother. When I went in the morning, early hours, I got up about half an hour early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. Came in and he was gone. He was gone.
Okay.
It's I did know that this would kind of come eventually, and it's proper that I serve my punishment. So yeah.
Okay, so Virginia, I'm just going to ask you this. This is what I've written down based on the information you just told us, because what we regard as a significant comment, because you've made it under caution after your arrest.
By the way, they're my granddad's.
Okay, right. So I've written this, please. I, Virginia McCullough, have informed police constables 77329 Brown and 79387 Bowers after entering my house on Friday the 15th September 2023 that I murdered my father, John McCullough, who was stated was under a bed in the rear ground floor of the house, and my mother upstairs in a cupboard next to the sink.
Wardrobe. It's a double wardrobe.
Right, okay, I've written
Double
cupboard.
wardrobe. It's like 4 wardrobe doors, but it's the one nearest the sink. Double wardrobe.
Back up then.
Yeah.
What's significant as I've written down there here now, I've just read out to you. Are you happy to sign that, to say that's a true account?
Yeah. Cheer up, at least you caught the bad guy.
Well, I've just woken up today and done my job. No.
I know I don't seem
Not a lot,
100% evil, but we all, yeah,
I'm not going to comment on anything. It's not my job to comment on it, okay? Because I've got to be impartial with everything, okay? So I'm not going to give any comments.
No, well, I mean, I deserve to obviously get whatever's coming sentence-wise, because that's the right thing to do. And that might give me a bit of peace. Also in the handbag as well, there's, and again, because you're probably going to need to know about it, there's a card in there, card one money, and that's a bank card where there's a lot of transactions that have taken place over the last few years.
What?
From money that pertains to my parents. So, murder weapon is upstairs in the toilet room, kitchen knife, against the wall, opposite the shelves. So there are two long white shelves. So opposite where that wall is, that's where the knife is. So next bit is very hard to talk about. That's probably the most grisly detail. So on the ground floor, underneath the stairs, there's a few like storage boxes and things. And in the middle, I think it's in one of the boxes or in a bag or something. If you want me to shush after this, it's fine. But every bit helps. You will find forensic bits helpful. There's a hammer. I know, but I'm trying to help so you find everything. It's in the middle, underneath the stairs. It will still have blood on it. It's rusted, but it will still have blood traces on it. So not cooperating is it's futile.
Yeah.
There's no point in not cooperating. There really isn't. And plus, apart from which anyway, I should take what I've done. That's the other side of the coin, I think. So, yeah.